Some footy in the city over the weekend as well. Didn't quite go as well as your guest star in the programme. There's obviously so much that you can sort of talk about from it. So many narrative strings. If you look across social media at the moment, it's a wash with who everyone thinks is to blame and all these kinds of things. I think if I'm trying to sum it up overall, I just think Liverpool were outthought on the day, and that can happen. That can happen against worse teams in Manchester United. It can happen against teams who are in worse form than Manchester United are at the moment. But I think we've all come away from that sort of respecting United, and particularly Amorim, to be honest, just that little bit more.
Yeah, I think football's fickle, isn't it? And obviously, like, the context going into it, in layman's terms, was they're struggling, we're flying. We've battered them in sort of recent history, so we expect it to happen. But I'm always a bit nervous when United aren't necessarily flying. Yeah. I'd almost want them.
It's like there's a big wounded animal thing with them, I think, isn't there?
Exactly, yeah. And the first 10 minutes, I think the team really give the fans something to get behind. I think they would have been nervous travelling up the motorway, if they could get up the motorway in the snow. Yeah. But ploughing down the motorway. I think there was tons of fight in them, and you could see that they were really up for it, which I was gutted about, to be honest, because I could have just done with a bit of an easy Sunday. But to be fair to them, they set up well. I think Amorim's got something about him. Yeah. I think the back five really suited them on a tight, compact pitch at Anfield. And more than that, they showed that they're no pushovers. So it's interesting, frustrating from a Liverpool point of view, but ultimately it's another game out the way with another point on the board. And nobody's caused any ground on us, so there's no need for any big inquiries or anything like that. It's just on to the next one.
Yeah, well, we'll try not to do too big of an inquiry, but just to go across some of these things that people have been sort of questioning, I guess, from the weekend. The first thing was team selection. Obviously, rushes Konate back rather than going with Kwanzaa. I'll be interested to see how that Kwanzaa situation develops over the season and into the not so distant future, to be honest, because you do sort of fear for his confidence, and the manager's obviously got to be dealing with that behind the scenes anyway, so maybe there's sort of more to that than meets the eye. But then there's Diaz being picked through the middle up top as well, which I'd say has broadly worked for Liverpool so far. You can maybe question the Fulham game as the last time it didn't properly work. It clearly didn't work yesterday, and it felt like if anything, they were two of the things you could pick at and be like, listen, if we're trying to look for reasons for this happening here, then the manager's got those two things wrong, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a difficult one to touch on Konate first. It's a difficult one with the Kwanzaa situation, and I think Liverpool fans want to see young bloods coming through, don't they? And I'm a big fan of his. I think he's got tons of potential, and he looks like he's got a big personality as well, which I don't mind in football. I think you need that from certainly centre halves and those type of positions. But let's not forget, Konate is one of the best centre halves in the world, and we've got a league to win, and I don't blame him for throwing him in, because he's probably watched them saying and gone, this fella's unbelievable. Yeah. He can just go back in, and you need to get him up to speed. And I think the only thing, we really did miss Joe Gomez, not to kind of cry in too much, but on the ball. Because I think the way that they were set up, as you said, cutting the lanes, not to get too tactical about it, but it's like Gomez has got a really nice pass into midfield, and he can kind of just glide through. You can gain you 10 yards sometimes, which I think on the quiet is something that we've gained in the past sort of 10 games or so that he's been playing. Konate finds it a little bit more hard with the ball, I would say, and he's better off the ball than Gomez. Yeah. I think we could have done a bit more of that yesterday. In terms of the forward line, I really like that front three. I think it's good. I think it's full. They suit each other. It's full of tenacity. But what I would say, it's like almost like a perfect European away front three, in the sense that it's almost hard work and Diaz causing trouble, Gakpo getting down the wing. At home, when it's against the low block, you just want to see a number 9 in the box. Yeah. And I don't think we've quite got that in our squad. I do think that's a bit of a missing piece. I know we brought Nunes on, but he's flattering to deceive at the moment, really, isn't he? And you can't really get away from that. I think he's a good player, tons of ability, and I've got no doubt he'll score goals for somebody, or even us down the line potentially. But it just feels for me that we could do with a lad who could just score from 6 yards in the 6-yard box every now and again when Mo decides he's not going to score. And I think that was the missing piece yesterday, really. Yeah,
and you mentioned Mo, and obviously there's a bit of a Konate thing within this. It's clear that United had the game plan to target Liverpool's right-hand side yesterday, and I'd say it was a bad day for all three of those lads on the right-hand side, to be honest. I'm allowing Gravenberch in that because he's obviously filling in a lot on that right, and I thought he was probably our bright spark yesterday, really. But quiet game from Salah on the whole. Obviously gets the penalty, which should have proved decisive, but then Liverpool go and sort of shoot themselves in the foot again, and then Konate doesn't have a great game. Trent has a pretty horrible game, to be honest, and there's obviously all there's all the narratives in the world that people can come up with after. I tend to side with what Slot was saying in the game after on this, that United have had the game plan there to target Trent. Listen, he's had a bad day. It's a terrible time for him to have a bad day, just in terms of how the narratives go. But equally, sometimes you wake up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning. Sometimes it's not your game, and he's just had one there, really.
Yeah, I felt for him, really. I think sometimes when Anfield's behind you, as a footballer, it can make you feel 10 foot tall. But I think sometimes when it's like it was with Trent yesterday, it can almost make you feel 2 foot tall as well sometimes. And I think my opinion on it with Trent is he's such a talent, and he's given so much to the club that we should be getting behind him and showing him what he's going to miss, rather than kicking him out the door, which is what it felt like at some stages yesterday in the crowd from my point of view. It did get a bit toxic, it did get a bit nasty, but that being said, him, the club, and the way that the situation's worked out have got themselves in this mess, and it's been something that I've been kind of saying in pubs, coffee shops, when we're invited to do these shows for a while. Liverpool don't want to create any distractions for themselves because they've got silverware to it. It's not very often that we could get ourselves in a situation like this. So for me, there just needs to be a bit of a resolution, and I think from the fans' point of view, we need to be getting behind him for as long as he's going to be here, whether that's 5, 10 years or 5 months.
YouTube, press the button, become a member of the Anfield Wrap from the heart of the city of Liverpool. The best way to enjoy all your Liverpool-based videos, everything you need, every single day. It is the Anfield Wrap.